Afghan female students stand outside Kabul University on December 21, 2022. The country's Taliban rulers have ordered women nationwide to stop attending private and public universities effective immediately. Afghan female students stand outside Kabul University on December 21, 2022. The country's Taliban rulers have ordered women nationwide to stop attending private and public universities effective immediately. In one instance, a teacher reported security forces barging into his class, shouting at girls to go home. Some of students started verbal arguments with them, but they didn't listen. "My students left their classes, crying," said Wahid Hamidi, an English language teacher at a tuition center in Kabul. "I genuinely think that the man in charge thinks that this is what an Islamic society ought to look like," says Obaidullah Bayer, a Kabul-based lecturer at the American University of Afghanistan. Speaking earlier to NPR about Akhundzada, he said, "He had this very specific view of where women or young girls should be within the society, which is within their households. So I guess for all intents and purposes, this is a gender apartheid. This is nothing short of that." Since coming to power in August last year, the Taliban have overseen a hodgepodge of education policies. They allow girls to attend school until the 6th grade, when primary school ends. But they have prevented most girls from attending formal secondary school education, reneging on a promise to allow them back to class in March, when the scholastic year began. Some girls in distant provinces still attended high school, however, and another, unknown number were attending informal classes in tuition centers. And in a quirk of contradictory decision-making, the former Minister of Higher Education Abdul Baqi Haqqani allowed women to attend universities, albeit under strict conditions, including wearing face coverings and abiding by strict segregation. But in October, Haqqani was replaced with known hardliner, Nida Muhammad Nadeem, who had expressed his opposition to women receiving an education. He is known to be close to Akhundzada. The edict, issued by the Ministry of Higher Education, said women were suspended from attending public and private centers of higher education until further notice. Taliban officials have not responded to multiple requests to explain the move. Girls study at a secret school on the outskirts of Kabul in July of 2022. Initially, it was believed that the ban applied to women attending universities. But on Wednesday morning, English teacher Wahidi reported Taliban security forces were turning girls away from his center. After barging into one class, they stood at the center's door and told girls to go home, he said. "They stood there for 2 hours," he said. "They came and warned us physical actions if we continue teaching English for girls." Another woman who runs 3 free-of-charge tuition centers for high school-aged girls said she was waiting for Taliban education officials to rule on whether she could keep operating. Zainab Mohammadi said one of the teachers she employs told her that another nearby center that taught girls was shut down. Then, she burst into tears. Mohammadi said she only employed and taught women, abiding by the Taliban's strict gender segregation rules. Her students wear black robes and black face veils to and from school to ensure they do not offend patrolling Taliban forces. "They wear the hijab," she said. "They follow all the rules of Taliban." Other women who are now effectively expelled from university said they were too angry to cry. One student, Spogmai, told NPR in a voice message that her friend told her of the edict as she was preparing for an end-of-year exam. "I have no words," she said. "I'm feeling sad and wondering," she asked, "will I be allowed to study again? And go to university?" The international community swiftly condemned the Taliban's move. But more than a year after the Taliban seized power, with many Afghans desperate for work, for aid, for asylum, it didn't go down so well. Zalmay Khalilzad, the U.S. envoy who was the architect of the Taliban's return to power through an agreement struck with Washington to withdraw American and Western forces, described the move as shocking and incomprehensible to a Pakistani newspaper. It enraged Afghans on Twitter. It even appeared to rouse the ire of former senior diplomats. NATO's last senior civilian representative to Afghanistan, Stefano Pontecorvo, retweeted another former Afghan diplomat, Jod Loudon, saying, "I'm shocked by how so many people are shocked. What did you all expect? Really?"
Republicans released their own U.S. Capitol riot report focused on security failures. House Republicans on Wednesday released a report focused on security failures at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, highlighting well-documented breakdowns in intelligence sharing, Capitol security and coordination between various law enforcement agencies that responded that day. But the GOP report is silent on other efforts to disrupt the transfer of presidential power after the 2020 election and selective in its criticism of political leaders and their culpability in the security breakdowns on January 6. The report resurfaces largely unfounded allegations to cast blame on Democrats like House Speaker Nancy Pelosi while glossing over former President Donald Trump's own role. Republicans cast the report as a rebuttal to the House Select Committee's investigation into January 6 as they are set to take control of the chamber and endeavor to take back the narrative. Republican lawmakers have said the security failures are paramount and that the Select Committee overstepped its mandate in its 17-month probe. The Democratic-led Select Committee had planned to release its final report on Wednesday but has delayed the rollout until Thursday. An executive summary released on Monday lays blame for the insurrection squarely on Trump. The GOP report comes from the 5 Republicans who House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy initially appointed to serve on the Select Committee before deciding members of his party would not participate. It includes a timeline of events that occurred on January 6, making no mention of the fact that Trump waited hours before calling on the rioters to leave the U.S. Capitol that day and omitting incendiary remarks he made at the rally preceding the attack. Instead, the report paints Trump as only encouraging his supporters at the White House ellipse to march to the U.S. Capitol and demonstrate peacefully, noticeably omitting other parts of the speech, including when he encouraged rally-goers to fight like hell. Similarly, the timeline includes a tweet Trump sent after the Capitol had been breached, saying, "Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful." The House Select Committee has revealed testimony from several former White House officials saying Trump repeatedly refused to call off the rioters despite being asked to do so by a number of his closest advisors. The GOP report also doesn't address Trump's claim that he issued a directive prior to January 6 to deploy thousands of National Guard troops to the Capitol that day. Trump's former Defense Secretary Christopher Miller, in an interview with the Select Committee, denied Trump gave him formal orders authorizing the deployment of National Guard troops to the Capitol on January 6.
Sam Bankman-Fried expected back in U.S. after agreeing to extradition. Sam Bankman-Fried, the jailed founder of the collapsed cryptocurrency exchange FTX, is expected to fly back to the U.S. on Wednesday to face criminal charges after waiving his right to contest extradition from the Bahamas. After several days of conflicting signals from Bankman-Fried's U.S. and Bahamian legal teams, the disgraced crypto king appeared in court in Nassau to inform a magistrate judge of his decision. At the hearing, Bankman-Fried consented to extradition to the U.S. Reuters reported that his lawyer read an affidavit in which Bankman-Fried said that he has decided to agree to extradition in part out of a desire to make the relevant customers whole. After the hearing, Bankman-Fried was set to be transferred to U.S. custody and returned to the U.S. to be arraigned in criminal fraud charges connected to FTX's dramatic collapse. In a series of sometimes rambling media interviews, Bankman-Fried has said he did not plan to commit fraud and was not aware of what was going on at Alameda Research, a hedge fund he founded that allegedly received billions in customers' funds from FTX. Federal prosecutors hinted strongly last week that some members of the FTX Alameda team in the Bahamas had become government witnesses. This was not a case of mismanagement or poor oversight, but of intentional fraud, plain and simple, U.S. Attorney Damian Williams said last week. Williams said Bankman-Fried's wrongdoing included fraud on customers, investors, lenders, and our campaign finance system. Bankman-Fried's return to the U.S. resolves what has appeared to be a conflict between his U.S. and Bahamian legal teams. At a chaotic hearing in Nassau on Monday, Jerome Roberts, Bankman-Fried's Bahamas lawyer, told a judge he did not know the reason for the proceedings. After speaking with both sets of lawyers, Bankman-Fried reportedly agreed to extradition. He's waiving extradition to curry favor with the government, whether it's via a deal in order to save the government from spending potentially years trying to extradite him, or he's trying to cooperate, said Jeffrey Lichtman, a defense attorney who has been involved in a number of high-profile criminal defense cases, including that of the drug boss Joaquim El Chapo Guzman. If he's waiving extradition, Lichtman added, he's not going to trial. That's not exactly a surprise in a case like this because he may not have a defense. In a case where the fraud is plain and easy to prove, it may not go to trial, so he's very possibly looking to get the best deal he can. In Lichtman's view, Bankman-Fried is likely to try to cooperate, but the government may not want him, given that as founder and chief executive officer of FTX, he is at the top of the fraud scheme it has alleged. Bankman-Fried's initial defense lawyer, Paul Weiss, resigned 2 weeks ago saying he could not represent the talkative defendant, saying his incessant and disruptive tweeting was making the task impossible.